Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back for our March. This is March. Oh, yes, it is March. And we are back for our March conversation in this group from depression to destiny. Yes, I'm rocking the earrings today, y'all. Y'all getting the earrings to go with the book. All right, so we are here. We are live. I'm just going to jump right into it. If you catch me here live, just meet me in the comments and let me know that you're here. If you catch me on the replay, again, meet me in the comments and let me know that you're here. And if you don't say anything at all, that's perfectly okay too. Thank you for being here. I have my book, my notes, y'all. Y'all know I got to have my notes and everything, my talking points and all of that, okay? So, again, we are back for our March conversation, all right? So, happy Friday. I hope this day has bid you great joy and that you are enjoying the weather. It is beautiful here. I am coming to you from Washington, D.C. The weather is so nice, and it has been a great day so far, although I ain't done anything but make reels and pay myself. All right, y'all gonna have to go to my personal page for that. But we are back. So I made a question. I'm gonna be moving stuff around, so bear with me. I got my talking points, okay? So if you've been on the journey with us, we're going to be going live once a month, every month for the remainder of the year. All right. So feel free to go back and catch the replays of all the other lives that has taken place so far. So this is March, and our topic in March is moments. And so I put up a question in the group saying, does depression moments last a lifetime? And is it something we live with? All right, so go ahead, answer the question in the chat. Go ahead and join into this dialogue, and this conversation with me on this afternoon. So again, I asked the question in the group, does depression last a lifetime? And is it something we live with? All right, so while you're pondering on that question, we're going to get into all of it in this conversation on this afternoon. So if you're here, I'm going to be jumping back and forth, looking at my notes and looking at the screen. So just let me know that you're here. I won't be doing personal shout outs or personal acknowledgments, as I just want to get through this swiftly without any interruptions. So thank you for joining me. I thank you guys for being here on this afternoon in this space with me. So depression moments, what are depression moments, right? So moments are a very brief period of time. We know depression, I've talked about it in prior videos. Depression is a mood disorder. Depression is a mental health disorder. Depression is an emotion. It's simply that, it's an emotion. And in that emotion, can it gradually become something bigger? Absolutely. All right. And so when I think of the term moments, I often go back to this other term, which is called episodes. So in the mental health realm, or in the clinical realm, and in the doctors, most of them use the term episodes. All right. I use the term moments because it's a more of a sweeter term than saying somebody is having an episode. So I term in my book, and we're going to get into it. So all of the topics are taken from this book that I wrote. So this book is a depiction of my journey with dealing with depression and mental health illness throughout a 10-year period, in my life. So this is the book. It is available nationwide wherever books are sold, in stores and online. So again, I am Tiara Graves. I am the author, the overcomer, the group leader, the motivational speaker, the teacher, the professor. I am the one that God has allowed to come before you to share a piece of my story, a piece of my journey, in hopes that it will enlighten, inspire, uplift, bring awareness to anyone that it touches. And knowing that I am a reflection of you and that healing and overcoming is definitely possible. But it is a process. We have to do the work, and it doesn't happen overnight. Hence, I just said my journey was over 10 years, okay? So what is an episode? An episode is an event or a group of events occurring as a part of a large sequence, an incident, or a period concerned in isolation. All right? So typically, if you've been around anyone that has dealt with depression, or if you've been around anyone that have used the term that, oh, I'm having an episode, or I'm having a depression episode, right? Again, I use the term moments. Many people use the term episodes. All right. So it is a period where the individual may do several things, right? The individual may isolate themselves. Most of the symptoms that occur occur most every day, right? So nearly every single day or most of the day. And this varies depending on the individual. There are moments of outbursts, irritability, frustration, angry, sadness, emptiness, hopelessness, right? And this is just some of the symptoms. This is not end all be all. You can get any of this information offline. One of the sources that I'm using in this discussion on today is the National Institute of Mental Health. Okay, so you can go online, you can find any of these resources. Also, again, if you are interested in purchasing my book, the second to last page in my book, I also list additional resources. It's somewhere. Bear with me. I haven't gone through this book in its entirety since I released it. But it's somewhere. Here it is. I purposely created this page. So this page in the book, I purposely created this page. This is a page of additional resources. While this is my story, my journey, I also wanted to make sure that whoever picked up this book would have resources that they could go to outside of just hearing my story. Because again, this is my story. And everybody's story, everybody's testimony, everybody's journey is different. So I didn't want anybody to just rely solely on what I put, the information that I put in this book. So again, this is my journey. And so I created a page that has several resources about depression, about mental health, psychology, mental health, Service Administration, Christian Association for Psychological Studies. And so there are, like I said, several resources in the back of this book. You can grab this book if you're interested. So be thinking about the question. So again, does it last a lifetime? And is this something that we live with? So what are causes? What causes depression moments, right? What causes people to have depression moments? It can be an upsetting or stressful life event, such as bereavement. It can be divorce, illness, job, or money issues. All right. So again, if you've been following me, you know that I talk a lot about grief because my depression stemmed from grief. Okay, so a lot of what I was processing had stemmed from different losses and different upsets throughout my life, right? So upsets can be, you know, anything that just, you plan for it to go one way and it didn't go that way. So now you're upset about it. And it can be really, really small matters, small matters. Okay. And so those of you who don't know me personally, I am a joker. So you're going to see me laughing. You're going to see me joking. This is a very, very serious topic. However, I share my story through humor because humor helps me heal. All right. And I have overcame depression. So because I have overcame in this area, it's no longer a struggle like it was for me over 10 plus years. So now I'm in a place where I'm healthy, I'm whole, and I can laugh about it. But I also don't take it lightly that people are out here really struggling in this area. And I thank God for this platform. I thank God for continuing to use me to be a voice of hope for someone. All right. So for me, depression was because of, it was several factors. But the main factor was definitely loss. Okay. So I started to experience loss as a young child. And I didn't really know what it was, having to lose grandparents and then losing aunts and uncles and losing cousins. And then I'm losing, some of my teachers who I had built really great relationships with and mentors. And it just seems like things around me were falling apart. And I was trying to figure out why. And also, depression was challenging because I was the only person in my immediate family that was dealing with something like this. So then that added another level of struggle because I'm thinking, okay, if my family don't understand it, then who is there to talk to? Because they don't understand it. They don't even believe it. So what am I to do? So that's another added level of stress when you're trying to process something that you don't really understand yourself, but then the people around you don't understand it either. And so I was diagnosed in 2007, 2008, around the age of 23. So I'm currently 39. I'm not afraid to share my age. I am 39 years old. I was diagnosed, like I said, around the age of 23. All right. So 23, the highlight of your life, or supposed to be. You've gotten out of high school, you're somewhere in college, or even about to graduate from college, right? So my 20s were like the most challenging times of my life because of this umbrella of depression. And so I dealt with sleep disturbances, poor concentration, lack of energy, decreased interest in pleasurable activities, low mood, and impairment in my daily life. And so what does all of that mean? When I got out of high school, and I'm going to come back to some of this other stuff. I'm jumping around, but I got all my notes. We're going to get through this. All right. So when I got out of high school, I was 18. And I had a full academic scholarship to a local university here in Washington. And I didn't really know a lot about college. My mom, my dad, none of them went to college. So I would have, well, I am currently, but at that time, we'll get into the current part, but we'll still talk about in the past. So we'll bring you up to speed in a shortly. So I would have been the only, well, not the, yeah. So I would have been the first generation college graduate in my immediate family. And so this idea of a full scholarship was exciting, right? So it was very exciting to my parents and my sisters and, my family. They were excited. And so when I was in high school, I graduated with honors. I graduated twice from high school. I graduated from my high school, which had one ceremony for everyone who graduated, just graduating as a senior. But then we had a separate ceremony where I graduated a second time because I was in an honors program in my high school. And through this program, which was Health and Human Services Academy, it allows students to get scholarships to pursue careers in the medical field. And y'all, I was not interested in no medical field. Okay, let's be clear. I was not. So, during those times when I was in school, the way school, I don't know how school is, well, things have changed, but when I was in high school, again, in Washington, I'm in DC, and again, state to state, things vary. But here in DC, if you did not live in the area where the school was, then you could not attend that school. And so at that time, me and my family was living across town. We were living in a whole nother neighborhood, but my mom didn't want us to go to those schools that was in that neighborhood. And so they told her, well, the only way to get me and my sister enrolled in this particular school is that we had to enroll through this academy program. So no, it had nothing to do with us being interested in it. We wasn't thinking about, oh, it's going to give us scholarship money for college. We wasn't thinking about any of that. The only thing that we cared about is that my mom wanted us in that school because she felt like it was a better school. It was in a different environment. It was across town and it was safe. That was it. Okay, that was it. And so we got into this school, we got into this program, and then of course that's when you find out all the logistics once you're there. You have to keep a certain GPA, you have to take certain courses, your schedule's going to look different from the average student that is not in this program. And so here it goes, right? It's like, okay, what did we sign ourselves up for? All to say that we're at a good school. And being at a good school came with a whole lot of headaches and a whole lot of stress to live up to the standards and the requirements, not just from the school, but because of my parents. Like my kids are in this school, they're in this program, and they want to talk about how amazing we are. And it's like, listen, we struggling here. Like, this ain't amazing at all. And so I had to go through that, right? Stress. And so when I graduated, I had to tell my family, like, hey, I got a scholarship. And I'm thinking, oh, God, this is dreadful. Like, I don't want to tell them that. I don't want to tell them I got this scholarship because I don't even want to go to this school. And so got the scholarship, went to this school. And again, I went to the school right away. So I didn't wait until I was 23. So right after high school, 18, graduated in June. And by August, I was enrolled into this university. And while I was there was the highlight. That's why I said my 20. So from like the 20, when I turned 20 or 19-ish, like not even 2 years after being at that school, was the highlight of my depression. And so I started to withdraw from my classes. I ended up getting a job that was across the street from the university. And I started to tell my parents that I was going to school every day and that it was well. However, I was taking one class and I was working full time across the street. And so once I found out that you could be considered, full time, or you could be considered part time in the school. And I said, well, I don't even care what time I'm considered because I don't want to be here no way. And so I basically wasted a full academic scholarship because I was trying to please other people. And around that time, I was also diagnosed. Okay, so I was diagnosed with what they call major depressive disorder or clinical depression. So I was diagnosed around the age of 23. So by then I had spent maybe 2 years in college doing absolutely nothing, wasting people money, wasting time, trying to figure out who I am, trying to figure out what I want to do. Because again, I was enrolled in the medical field and I had no desire to be in the medical field. All right. So again, depression moments. What causes them? Stressful situations, right? Yes, it does. All right. So I felt like I was dealing with, being a disappointment to my family. I'm like, oh shoot, they thinking I'm doing well. They so excited about this money, this free money to go to school. And I get it. Like my parents would have been able to pay for me to go to college. I get it. I completely understand it. But in the same token, putting your child or putting anybody through a situation like that because of the money isn't helpful either. Because then, like I said, I wasted it. But and I'm paying for it now because I paid for my own self to go to school later on. But we'll get to that. But we still here. We still flashing back, y'all. Stay with us. So I was diagnosed, and when I was diagnosed, I was put on Lexapro and Wellbutrin. So because I had started to have sleep disturbances, low moods, decreased interest in pleasurable activities, poor concentration, lack of energy. So all of these things started to play out even when I was in school and even when I was at home. And so I started to be like, what is going on? Like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I tired? Why am I sad? Like, why am I going through all of these different types of feelings? And so, I became sad. I felt empty. I felt hopeless. I felt stressed, frustrated. I felt irritable. So all of these things I started to feel. And I said, okay, what the heck? Let's just go to the doctor. Let's just see what they say. And not that I went in there thinking like, oh, they're going to tell me that I got depression. I really didn't think that. But it happened. Okay. And it scared me. If I'm honest, it actually did scare me because it was the first time in my life that I heard a terminology as far as a diagnosis from a doctor that I had never heard before. No one in my family had ever been diagnosed with anything like that. I didn't know nobody in my circle, no friends of mine or anyone. I had never heard anything like that. So I didn't know what that was. And I didn't know what my life was supposed to look like with that diagnosis. And so, before I jump into the poem, I'm going to read the poem, but before I jump into the poem, so the National Institute of Mental Health lists 5 levels of depression. Now, I just learned this today, okay? You know how they say I was this day old when I learned this. So I was just this day old when I learned this part. That it's 5 levels. I had never heard that it was more than 1 level because all I've heard, most people be diagnosed with what I was diagnosed with, which is clinical depression. So, and these are not in no particular order. I don't know the orders of the levels. I just know that there's 5 levels. And again, you can find this information at the National Institute of Mental Health. So major depressive disorder, which is clinical depression. Then you have persistent depression disorder. You have seasonal affective disorder. And then you have depression with symptoms of psychosis. And then you have prenatal depression or prenatal or prenatal. I don't listen. If I'm saying it wrong, I'll put it in the comments. Y'all know when the live is over, I'll go put all my resources on the top of the page. So if I'm saying that wrong, it's okay. So these are the 5 levels of depression. Okay. Again, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, which is considered clinical depression. And so the symptoms and things that I've been talking about since I've been on here fall under clinical depression. The other 4, I don't know much about. I'm not going to go research those. Feel free to go look that up on your own. I'm only focusing on the first one because that is my direct experience and that's the one that I most know about because it was my journey. Another thing is triggers. If you've ever heard the term triggers are a stimulus that elites a reaction, brings on or worsens symptoms. So what that means is if I am already experiencing, let's just say, a symptom of lack of energy or a symptom of sleep disturbance, right? Triggers are stress related, medication related, loss related, grief or loss related, and illnesses. So if I'm saying, which I'm telling you guys, my depression stemmed from grief and loss and abrupt changes that happened in my life. So if I'm already feeling sleep disturbance or lack of energy, then these triggers, right? So the trigger of a loss or the trigger of a stressful event is going to make my symptoms worse, right? And what does that look like? If I'm sleep disturbance, meaning sleep disturbances, it typically means that you are having trouble either falling to sleep or you're having trouble staying asleep. For me, it was that I couldn't go to sleep at all. So for me, I was awake. So if I had a trigger, the trigger was just like, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. See how long you can stay awake. Just stay awake. And the longest that I was able to stay awake and not be like physically sick, because this is another thing, depression, and like I said, depression is a emotion, but if it's not dealt with the proper way, then it becomes a bigger thing. And so if I'm already struggling to go to sleep and then I have a trigger that tells me to stay awake, and then I say, okay, I'm gonna stay awake, then that's causing physical issues as well. So now it's not just that it's a mental or psychological problem, but now it's becoming a physical problem, an emotional problem, and ultimately all of this leads to a spiritual problem. Yes, we're going to talk about the spirit because all of this is connected. All right, it is a spiritual thing. I believe it is a spiritual thing, and your healing is going to come from your relationship with God. That's it, and that's all. Now, I'm not against medication. I'm not against therapists and doctors or anything like that, because I tried all of it. It didn't work for me. When I surrendered, totally 100% surrendered to God and let Him work on me, is when I had my breakthrough. So if you need medication, do what you need to do. If you need a therapist, if you need a doctor, do what you need to do. All right. So don't walk off of this live and be like, well, Tiara said she ain't do da da da. You ain't Tiara. All right. All right. So the longest that I was able to stay awake, y'all, for real, the longest was 3 days. And by 3 days, literally, I was awake. I had been able to stay awake for 3 days. 3 days. Y'all do the math. If it's 24 hours in a day, 24 hours times 3 is what? 72 hours? Yeah, I was awake for 3 days. And I had this level of not really exhaustion, but it was kind of like, it was like a zombie kind of feeling. Like, I didn't know if I was awake for real or sleep. If I don't know how to really make this part make sense, because if you ain't never experienced this, if you ain't never walked this, then I can't really explain it to you. I'm gonna do my best, but I can't really make this make sense unless you have experienced this. But it was like I wasn't sleepy, but I knew I should be asleep. And in that moment, I knew if I went to sleep, I wasn't sure how long I would sleep, if that makes sense, right? So like, and then it's like other factors like start to creep in, right? So again, y'all, all of this is a mind thing. And so your mind really do play tricks on you. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, I've been up for 3 days. So if I fall asleep, do I have 3 days to make up for the 3 days that I ain't sleep? Right? Because then life is still life. And, you know, I'm in school, I'm working, and whatever I was doing in my 20s. But I still had a life outside of just this realm of depression. And so it's like, if I go to sleep, will I wake up? That was a real thing, y'all. And if y'all ain't catch me on the live last month, go back to fear. I'm going to tell you all this stuff is connected. We started in January. January was joy. February was fear. And March is moments. All right. All of this is connected. All of this is under the realm of under the umbrella, the realm of depression. All of this is connected. And so fear started to creep in. Because then it's like I've been up for so long that my mind is playing tricks on me. And now I'm afraid to go to sleep. Because now I'm scared. Like, what if I don't wake up? Type stuff. And so, again, all of this was just, I call it ring around the rosy, is what it was. So you have your depression moments, which are a brief period of time. And brief doesn't mean that it's, today and then tomorrow I'm better. Because again, my moments was 10 plus years. All right. And that's brief. That is brief. 10 years is brief. But for somebody else, it could be a week. It could be 30 days. It could be 3 hours. And then they over it. Right. But again, it's different for everybody. And so I'm going to read the poem. If you have any questions, please just drop a question or say something in the chat. I hope this makes sense. I hope this helps somebody. Recap, we got moments, right? So depression moments, a very brief period of time. And then you have moments is the same as episodes. Some people call it episodes. I call it moments. So depression episodes is an incident or a period considered in isolation. So isolation meaning that you're separating yourself from your daily life, right? So you're separating yourself from friends, you're separating yourself from family, you're separating yourself from all the things that you typically would do day to day because you're stuck under these emotions, right? So you're stuck in irritability, frustration, sadness, emptiness, hopelessness, anger. You're stuck in those emotions, and because you have allowed those emotions to take root and dwell on the inside of you and in your mental state, it causes you to isolate. Okay? And so the added piece to that is that you can also start to experience what they call triggers. Okay? So stress, medications, loss, grief, and illness. Again, this is not end all be all. These are just the ones that I felt led to share because these are some of the ones that directly reflect my journey. The Bible verse that I want to focus on for today, again, I posted all of this in the group. I put up, this is from Psalm 73, verse number 19. How are they brought into desolation? As in a moment, they are utterly consumed with terror. All right, when I came across this scripture, it summed up this depression moments nicely because it was a direct feeling that I had. I actually had terror, right? Which is why last month we talked about fear, because I actually had terror when I walked out of that doctor's office with that diagnosis, because I didn't know what I was supposed to do with that diagnosis. I was just like, what does this mean? What is my life going to look like? What am I supposed to do with this? Like it was terrifying. And again, so read that on your own time. Let that marinate, reflect on that scripture. It's a powerful scripture. And it just goes to show us that everything that we think that we are experiencing here on earth, somebody in the Bible has already went through that, y'all. Like, the Bible is really our roadmap to everything. Nothing that we're going through, nothing is new under the sun, right? History repeats itself. So if I've gone through it, somebody else has gone through it. I'm not the first person that go through this. I probably ain't the last person that's gone through this. So this is why it's important for us to come together, share our stories, because I do believe that we are overcome by one another's testimony. And so as long as you're in a place to be honest and open with yourself, then you can be honest and open and transparent with the next person. And so somebody is waiting to hear your story. So again, how are they brought into desolation? So I answered that. How? How are we brought into this depression state? Because of stressful life events, divorce, illness, money issues, job issues, and the list goes on and on and on and on, right? So that's how we brought into this. And it says as in a moment, right? So we're brought into this, but we're only brought into this for a moment, meaning it is not supposed to be a lifetime. That goes back to our initial question. Does it last a lifetime? And the answer is no. It does not have to last a lifetime, right? And then the second piece to that scripture says they are utterly consumed with terror. But again, the flip side of that is that God has not created us with a spirit of fear, right? I said that scripture in the live last month. God did not create us to walk in fear. And so in order for us to move from depression to destiny, you have to determine what your destiny is. Is your destiny to be healed? Is your destiny to be an overcomer? Is your destiny to be triumph over this? If your answer to that is yes, then you have to take the necessary steps in your own life and in your own journey to do healing and do the soul work, do what needs to be done. And for me, it's journaling, it's writing, it's prayer, it's fasting, it's just what they say, it's all things God, right? I'm wearing my shirt today. Just God, y'all. It's just God. But we have to give it to God. And when we go give it to God and leave it in his hands, we have to truly leave it in his hands and not pick it back up. And while at 23, I had no idea what my life was going to look like, what I was supposed to do with that diagnosis. And yes, it took a long time. It took a long time. It took a lot of prayers, a lot of crying, a lot of episodes, a lot of triggers. It was a lot of that going on. It took patience as well. I had to be patient with myself. God placed people in my life that were patient with me going through the journey. So it takes a lot, right? I had a whole circle of people outside of my individual family that was placed in my life that helped me through this. So God will connect you with the right people, but you have to be open to the process. And ultimately, you have to want this. Like, you have to want it, right? The second question was, is this something that we live with? The answer to the second piece is no. You don't have to live with depression, right? You don't have to have this be a part of your life for a lifetime. So if you answered yes in the poll, you probably thought that was the right answer. Because you was like me. You couldn't see anything else. And that's where I was. And I'm going to share this poem because the place I was in 2008, 2007, 8, 9-ish, is not the person that I am today. So when someone asks me, if you would have asked me that question 10 years ago, my answer would have been yes. But today, and where I am now, where I am in my Christian walk, where I am in my relationship with God, and just where I am mentally, the answer to those questions is still no. And so, moments. M is for moments. Life as we knew it changed in an instant. Present diagnosis. Pause. Moments. I live with depression, anxiety, panic attacks, mental illness, the occasion. Overtaking my mind, silence, no reaction. trapped. Can y'all still hear me? Because this thing just did something in my ear. I hope it didn't go out. Overtaking my mind, silence, no reaction, trapped behind the emotion. Savor the flavor of a lifetime of medications. At the twinkling of an eye, life changed in an instant as she knew it. Moments. Linger, crying, shaking, no control. Pause for a moment and breathe. Life as she knew it flashed ahead of me. Mental illness I live with. So again, I'm going to read it a second time. But remember, when I wrote this, I was healed. I wrote this in the past. So I wrote this as if it was happening now. So again, I actually wrote this poem January the 17th, 2021. But this was how I felt 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I felt like this is going to be something that I just have to live with. All right. And the reason I had that feeling is because I went to the doctor one day and it was not supposed to be my last session, but it turned out to be my last session because I sat in his office. I cried for about 2 hours. And then I got up and walked out the office. Nothing was accomplished. Nothing was said. I never said anything to him. He never said anything to me. And that was that. I was with my pastor. I asked her, I was like, I need you to go to this appointment. She went with me to that appointment. And we stood in the parking lot and I just cried my eyes out. She's like, you've been crying for the last 2 hours. Like, what is wrong with you? And I just had gotten to this point that I was just like, you know what? I can't do this. Like, I cannot do this. I don't want to come back to his office. I don't want to take pills. I don't want to do none of this. I just don't want to do any of this anymore. And I stood in the parking lot and I ripped the prescription up right in front of my pastor, dropped it right there on the ground. Like, I was like, whatever, I'm done. Like, this is what I feel like. These are the pieces of my life right here on this ground. I am done. I said, and when I go home, I've made the decision that I'm done. And I literally, in that moment, which was about, I believe that was like 2019-ish. So my journey has been long, y'all. That was about, I think that was about 2019. And I came home, I laid on the floor in my bedroom and I just cried and I just told God, like, listen, either you gonna help me with this or I'm gonna live with this, just like this. And I'm not apologizing, right? Like, sometimes you feel like you apologizing, like, oh, I'm sorry that I'm so upset. Oh, I'm sorry that I'm crying. Like, you feel like you got to keep apologizing to people because they don't understand what you're going through. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm not apologizing for my outbursts. I'm not apologizing for my feelings. I'm not apologizing for crying. I'm not apologizing no more. Like, I'm just about to be like, okay, this is what it is. And that's just what it's about to be. And I ain't stepping foot, literally. Like, and I know I'm not speaking correct English. But I ain't stepping foot, right, back in that office. And I just cried. And I just cried out to God, like, listen, I really need you to intervene. And I need you to intervene now. Now. Not later. Not tomorrow. No, I need you to intervene now. Because when I get up off this floor, I need to know that it's you and me. And that we going to ride this thing out till the wheels fall off. And I had a whole conversation with God like that because I was just like, I just cannot do this. Like, I've tried the pills. I've tried the therapy. I've tried all that stuff. It's not working. And a lot of it was not working because I wasn't in the right mindset. Like, it wasn't working because I wasn't allowing it to work. But I also didn't understand a lot of it. And so I just was like, okay, I'm just going to be, it's just me and God. Like, I came to that. Like, it's me and God. This is me and God. And that's it. Right? I'm not talking about this no more. And I didn't. Like, I was like, I'm not talking about this no more. I'm not explaining this to nobody no more. I'm not even having a conversation. Like, we're not even having a conversation about this. Right? And I never said anything after that day. And then God released me to write this. And I sat there like, wait, I haven't talked about depression in over 2 years or so. And God was like, now you're ready. And he had me write this. And I was like, what? You really want me to say that? You want me to put that out there in the atmosphere? God was like, yeah, it's time. You've done the work. And I knew that when I released this book, that it was going to be controversy. It was going to have people thinking like, wow, I didn't know she went through that. Like, oh, wow, no one knew that she was really struggling in that way. Oh, wow, why didn't she reach out? Or why didn't she tell someone? I was determined to just not even talk about that part of my life no more until I wrote this book. And this book was my real breakthrough because of my obedience to put my process, my journey, my depression journey on paper, right? Is when I truly got a different level of deliverance and healing in this area. And so I'm going to share this piece one more time. So this is moments, all right? Moments. That's what we're talking about. Life as we knew it changed in an instant. Present diagnosis. Pause. Moments. I live with depression, anxiety, panic attacks, mental illness, the occasion, overtaking my mind, silence, no reaction, trapped behind the emotion, savor the flavor of a lifetime of medications. At the twinkling of an eye, life changed in an instant as she knew it. Moments, lingering, crying, shaking, no control. Pause for a moment and breathe. Life as she knew it flashed ahead of me. Mental illness I live with. I am happy to report mental illness is not my identity, y'all. So what God did for me, he wants to do it for you. All right. I hope that something was said on today that was encouraging, that was uplifting, that just piqued a smile on your face and just gave you a little bit of hope to fight on another day. All right. So again, is this something we live with? It doesn't have to be. Is this a lifetime diagnosis? It doesn't have to be. All right. Thank you for joining me. Stay connected in the group. We will meet you back here in April. So again, we are doing a live once a month for the remainder of the year. And all of the topics are coming from my book. So April, we'll look at anxiety. All right. So in April, we'll look at anxiety. Thank you guys for joining me. That's our time together. And I will catch you guys again in April. So remember, we're moving from depression to destiny. All right. Catch you later. Have the most amazing day.